when you make investments in the stock market, you have to ask, what are you investing in? Because the old way used to be that you invest 100 rupees for maximization of profit under the country's laws. But now with ESG coming in, the share price is based on not only the profit that they make, but also environmental sustenance, social justice, and governance. So you need to say that I'm against ESG. I just want a profit. I do not want any of this other stuff. Today we had Silicon Valley Bank in California that went under, and guess what? They had a fantastic ESG score. And as of 3 days ago, their female corporate leaders were talking about female empowerment in the bank. So they were virtue signaling. They went on a ski trip and said, here are the female bankers. And all that is fine. I'm a woman and I support women in the workplace and all of that. But you cannot lose the mission. Can you imagine if you feminize the military, what happens? Right? I wouldn't want to be in a country that, that is feminizing military just because they're virtue signaling that they're inclusive by bringing women. I want the best person guarding the country.
So the point is that civilizations and nation states, because we are not perfect in terms of our ego, the human ego looks for collective advantage. If I want to get ahead, I say, okay, why don't I get together with other people of my type and we compete against those other fellows who are different. So the idea of difference of civilizations turns into competition, turns into hostility, war, conflict is an old thing. Caste as a factor in determining success should be evaluated against English as a factor in determining success. I think Angreziath gets you the job, gets you ahead in matrimonial, it gets you socially ahead, it gets you ahead in your profile. So why aren't we saying that there is an Angreziath caste? That Angreziath caste there should be a quota. There should be a job quota for the people who are coming from non-English speaking background. There should be some quota कि उनको इतनी % jobs मिलनी चाहिए in all these corporate sector. Non-Angreziath, because the Angreziath is a colonial Angreziath that is nothing to do with what caste was. It is not Brahmins. It is not Brahmin privilege of Sanskrit, which is what the allegation is. Nobody gets a job in Mahindra because he knows Sanskrit.
Thank you very much, Rajivji and Vijayji, for enlightening us on these aspects of hidden snakes, Thank you very much. I would like to know from you, from a common person's point of view, that how to identify these hidden snakes, right? You're talking about the hidden snakes. They are breached the corporate sector. They have breached the education sector. Everybody here, almost 90% of people here, they are working in the corporate sector. If I want to know who is a hidden snake in my office, how do I identify it? First, the second thing, you are talking about Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. In Mumbai, we are sitting in Thane, just 3 kilometers from here. There was a person arrested in a plot to kill the Prime Minister. In India, we call them as urban Naxalites. Everybody knows about this term, urban Naxalites. So how these urban Naxalites has to be contained? What are the remedies for that? And how do we identify them? What are the signs for them?
So what you look for is, you should go to your corporate HR department and ask for what is your policy on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Send it to me or Vijaya, we'll give you an analysis of it. So that is one of the main windows through which they are bringing in their ideology, because they're certifying these people. And it sounds very nice, diversity. But who is there? Who are there to teach our diversity? India is the most diverse society in the history of the world. We have more diversity of languages and different ways of praying and ethnicities and in all kind of ways. In every respect, India is the most diverse country there is. So how are they going to come and teach us diversity into the corporate sector? And then when we talk about equity, In terms of equal opportunity, equality, we have that. We are offering that. And in terms of inclusion, which means you include people, our society has that. Now, I know we have social problems. I know we have discrimination. I know we have caste oppression and all kind of things. But so does everybody else. It's not like they've reached a perfect society and they can teach us and export to us. We have our solutions. They have their solutions. We have our problems and we've also tried to solve them and we are making progress. So, these are things that are domestic. Social justice is domestic. It's not the job of somebody else to interfere and give us a rating on the index. If your rating is low on DEI, you will not get investments. You will not get equity investments, debt investments in the social markets, in the financial markets. So we are being sucked into a whole web where somebody else will have the danda with an index and saying, "Aap aise kariye, otherwise your rating will go down and your share price will go down." This is a serious problem that we are facing.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
When you make investments in the stock market, you have to ask, what are you investing in? Because the old way used to be that you invest 100 rupees for maximization of profit under the country's laws. But now with ESG coming in, the share price is based on not only the profit that they make, but also environmental sustenance, social justice, and governance. So you need to say that I'm against ESG, I just want a profit, I do not want any of this other stuff. Today we had Silicon Valley Bank in California that went under. And guess what? They had a fantastic ESG score. And as of 3 days ago, their female corporate leaders were talking about female empowerment in the bank. So they were virtue signaling. They went on a ski trip and said, "Here are the female bankers." And all that is fine. I'm a woman and I support women in the workplace and all of that. But you cannot lose the mission. Can you imagine if you feminize the military, what happens? Right? I wouldn't want to be in a country that that is feminizing military just because they're virtue signaling that they're inclusive by bringing women. I want the best person guarding the country. So we have to ask these tough questions in the money that we invest. So if there is a DI, an ESG component, you should call your fund manager and say, I want a fund without ESG ratings. Can I get a fund like that? So these are important things to ask. So when you see ESG, DEI, please question.
Ma'am, one more question related to the same point. You are saying that the entire world is conspiring against India to break India.
No, not the entire. We didn't say that.
Mostly. I would say mostly. Why the people outside India want to break India, which is most populated, which is an underdeveloped country, which is a poor country? Why they want to break India? What are their interests?
So, firstly, it is not targeting only India. Every civilization is competing against each other. The Romans were competing against the Greeks. The Roman-Greek rivalry is very old. The Greek-Persian empires were in conflict. The French, more recent times, the French and the British empires were in conflict. They were having wars. Today, America and China having wars. US and Russia having wars. Within the EU, there's tension between Britain and Europe. So you could argue, why is this happening? So the point is that civilizations and nation states, because we are not perfect in terms of our ego, the human ego looks for collective advantage. If I want to get ahead, I say, okay, why don't I get together with other people of my type and we compete against those other fellows who are different. So the idea of difference of civilizations turns into competition, turns into hostility, war, conflict is an old thing. Now, this is just a new game. It's just a new game that you infiltrate them with ideologies. You take their people, young people, educate them on your point of view, send them back, and inside they do an inside job, loyal to you, not loyal to their own country. So the point is, India is more easy to infiltrate and penetrate than other countries. In Russia, they kicked them out. In China, they wouldn't be allowed, these kind of things. Japan had a wokeism that they got rid of. Israel, they tried to get in and Israel kicked them out. Singapore had similar intervention. France had similar intervention and they kicked them out. So strong countries where the government is awake and the industry is very loyal to the country, they don't allow. But in our country, in the name of democracy and freedom and chalta hai and sab kuch chalega, kuch bhi kar sakte hain, and in the name of that, we have a lack of strategic thinking as a nation, strategic thinking in what is in my country's interest, and a lot of selfishness. I mean, when you look at Chinese students in America and compare them with Indian students in America, I did a comparison. So Chinese students, first of all, come for STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. They don't come to study Chinese history. They're not interested in studying the Uyghur problem. They're not going to Harvard to study the China's Uyghur problem or Tibetan problem or what is the problem with lack of democracy or politics. They're not interested in going to America and asking them about China. They're not. They just want to pick up technology and bring it back. Indians, some of them go for STEM. That's fantastic. But a lot of them go to study Indian history, to study Indian political system, to study Indian, culture. Why they need to go there? It's a very big difference between India and China. So हमारे लोगों में ये कमजोरी है. We are vulnerable because Indians are available. India is for sale because Indians are for sale. Indians are for sale. And a lot of Indians have been sold out, and therefore it is a very easy target for them because it's a huge country and so easy to come and buy out people. And nobody talking, nobody controlling it. I even asked some very senior responsible people that shouldn't there be some regulation or some guideline at least that if an Indian industrialist want to invest in setting up a school or a chair in his father's name or in his family name in a foreign country, there should be some guidelines. Now, if Mahindra wanted to set up a Mahindra center to study automobile industry, I would say that's great. He will learn some technology and he has the capability to monitor and evaluate how they are doing. And if Lakshmi Mittal wanted to fund metallurgy because he's a large steel maker, it would be good for him. But what does Mahindra know about postmodernism or some social science? He knows nothing about it. So why would he set it up in a field which has nothing to do with his industry, which has nothing to do with his competence and what he knows about? Why would he do that? It's kind of silly. So we have these kind of cleavages and internal divisiveness, selfishness, you might say selfishness. So, we are vulnerable. It's not like they're targeting us. If India were together, if the Indian government and the Indian industry and Indian technocrats and so on got together and made a strategy, this is our grand narrative, we protect our grand narrative, and anything we fund has to respect our grand narrative, our values. Otherwise, we are not going to fund them. Yeah, and we are going to, and if they are violating, we will actually come together against them rather than join them. If Indians were to get together, all these countries all of these forces would fall apart. I'm telling you that. If tomorrow 2 or 3 Indian industrialists in Mumbai and the government got together, we proposed this, but it's not happening. If they were to get together and have a plan that says, okay, the 3 or 4 industrialists will pick up the phone and call the person at Harvard whom they've given 50 million or whatever they've been giving money and tell him, stop doing this. Stop doing this about my country, my culture, my faith, because I don't like it, it doesn't fit my values, and you can't use my money. Believe me, things will change. But are we too selfish to do that? That's the point.
You pointed out that there is some kind of rot in our systems. You named Niti Aayog, you named foreign universities are allowed in India to operational. But isn't it an irony that when there is a hyper-nationalist government in the center, all these things are happening? Earlier it was not. The foreign universities are allowed by the present dispensation in the center. How do you look at it? Do we need to adapt the China model in that context?
The thing is, the thing is, we should adopt model in our self-interest, like every country is doing. So if you want education standards to increase, instead of bringing, by bringing foreign companies, foreign universities, and they have no rules, like he said, the government MOU with foreign universities says, the University Grants Commission, that they can teach any subject, which means all the negative things that I've been fighting for 30 years, they will start teaching here. It will get worse. They can hire any professors, which means all these Audrey Truskay and Wendy Doniger and all these people I'm fighting, those kind of people will be teaching here. and they can teach and give them any salaries and offer and have any tuition, which means that the cream of the Indian faculty will be sucked in by these people. The cream, the best brains in Indian faculty will be given double, triple salary and brought there. And the best students who are coming from rich families and they can pay a lot of money will be taken there. So the elite, the next generation of Indian elite will be trained, made in India by American universities. So this is so ridiculous. Instead of saying we are Vishwa Guru, we are becoming Vishwa Chela. We are becoming Vishwa Chela. मतलब हम आपके चेले हैं, आप हमको सिखाएं, अधिकार तो हमने आपको दे दिया है. We will give you the अधिकार to come here and teach us about ourselves. What a rotten thing to do. I mean, how could you say you are hyper nationalist when the education policy and the education system is now going more and more Americanized, less and less towards our own roots and towards our own heritage.
Your talk, you argued that the caste and race, they are separate. But India, there is a lot of discussion about the caste-based reservation policy. Do you think that that is affecting our chances? Do you think that that is given the foreign enemies, the snakes you are calling, a chance to sneak into India and try to break the India?
No, I think those who are handicapped for historical reasons need help. I support that they need help. You cannot just say, okay, no, let them just be impoverished forever. But there are ways to do it. I think you have to, if you do a study of IITians who came under quota but had less marks and artificially they came in, they have not done well, many of them drop out. So the problem is that the school has not prepared them. If the school has not prepared them, then giving them a boost in college is not correct. You have to start at kindergarten. You have to start at the lowest level of education and bring those children from any background, give them extra help if their families are poor or parents are not educated and so on. You give them extra help right from kindergarten. So basic primary education in India in these challenged communities is very poor. If the basic education institutions for such people is very shallow and very bad, then suddenly after 12 years school, you suddenly say, okay, artificially I'll send you to IIT. That's stupid. I mean, that's not going to solve the problem. So we are not solving the problem at the root, which means when they're children at young age, they need help at that age.
Also, like to add one more point. So we give reservation when they enter college, and that's supposed to make things great, yeah, even, and it doesn't happen. So you give reservation again at the job level, and that's okay, supposed to somehow make the playing field equal, but even that's not happening. So you give promotions. So this goes on. So anyone with a little bit of sense will see that reservation is actually not working. And some of these suicides that we see is happening because we are putting young children in a situation which is like a pressure cooker, and they're totally unprepared. And that's not fair to them more than reservation. And my heart goes out to young kids who don't have the family support or the background and enter such systems and are not able to cope. And they are young. After all, they are 18, 19, 20. They are young. They do not have the capability to cope in such a system. So I think we have failed them. And instead of looking at just reservation and appeasement, we should look at what is the fundamental problem that we have. And also, we should also make them understand that engineering and medicine are not the only fields available. So these are sort of some ground level things that we should do, if we really want to uplift our poor.
So I would add one more thing. Caste as a factor in determining success should be evaluated against English as a factor in determining success. I think Angreziath gets you the job, gets you ahead in matrimonial, it gets you socially ahead, it gets you ahead in your profile. So why aren't we saying that there is an Angreziath caste? That Angreziath caste there should be a quota. There should be a job quota for the people who are coming from non-English speaking background. There should be some quota कि उनको इतनी % jobs मिलनी चाहिए. in all these corporate sector, non-Angreziath. Because the Angreziath is a colonial Angreziath that is nothing to do with what caste was. It is not Brahmins. It is not Brahmin privilege of Sanskrit, which is what the allegation is. Nobody gets a job in Mahindra because he knows Sanskrit. Nobody gets a job. But everybody gets a job based on how much English they know. So I think if you really want to profile what characteristics are giving privilege that are multi-generational, I think Angreziath has to be one of them.
Two members of the audience, they have the same question. So, Mr. Virendra Chavan and S.H. Subramaniam. They are saying that yes, there are snakes in Ganga, but these snakes are getting energy from a big anaconda. They have named Soros and Amartya Sen to be specific. And they are asking how to deal with them. Soros is such a rich person, how a poor country like India can deal with
Yeah, so I disagree with their assessment. I think that's why we wrote this book. This assessment is 10 years old. Amartya Sen has got no clout. He's an old guy and he's fine. Soros is he's in his 80s. We pointed out the new giants, the new alligators, crocodiles in the Ganga, not just snakes, and we have named them. So the Soros के पीछे लोग लगे हुए हैं. ठीक है, Soros is a bad guy. Nobody going after Omidyar. I'm surprised. Omidyar has got more than 200 startup ventures in India, tech ventures, where he invested over $500 million. He's very proud of it. Just go to Omidyar Network and go to LinkedIn or something, go to Omidyar Network. Very beautiful. They have a meeting. They're talking about social justice, empowerment, responsible government, how to be a responsible future. All these wonderful sounding ways of infiltrating young minds and teaching them things that are not necessarily from our cultural heritage. This is very serious.
I have one more point there. I think one is the institutions here that these snakes create, but also we should look at the United Nations, the WHO, the UNESCO organization, WEF, and these are organizations, and behind them are people like the global elites, right? There's the Gates Foundation and all these people. And they use the system of the United Nations to enter India and undermine India and bring in these ideas of critical race theory and support NGOs. Like the World Bank, Rajiv ji was saying about caste sensitivity training. World Bank wants to do caste sensitivity training for its employees. So these are organizations that we should actually scrutinize and actually and sever ties with these organizations, because they are irrelevant for today. For a rising India, we do not need such close ties and listen to these big international organizations. In fact, I think just last week they are contemplating a treaty with WHO where all countries will give up all their sovereign rights and will bow to the WHO for a future pandemic. So whatever the WHO says, they're going to implicitly listen. So these are big players, and behind them are people like the Gates Foundation. So when you see the WHO or the UN, you have to look and see who's funding them.
There is a Hindu phobia we can see in the academic field all over the world. Like which you have rightly exposed in the American writings. Specifically, if I name Wendy Dinger, you had exposed her very well. But why do you think there is so much Hindu phobia in the academic field? Why they are against Hindus? Forget about India, they are targeting Hindus only. What are the reasons behind it, and how to counter that?
So we just came out 2-3 weeks ago with a book called 10 Heads of Ravana. And we are saying that Ravana got reincarnated as an intellectual. And he's got 10 heads, 10 personalities. And I'll read out who are some of these personalities. There's a separate chapter on each one of them. Written by our young scholars, we are mentoring new young intellectual Kshatriyas. So the 10 heads are Romila Thapar, Sheldon Pollock, Michael Witzel, Devdutt Pattanaik, Irfan Habib, Shashi Tharoor, Audrey Truske, Ramachandra Guha, Kancha Ilaya, Wendy Doniger. So these are 10 Hindu-phobic scholars And each one of them is featured. The rules are we are not going to insult them personally, no personal attack, no defamation, only talking about their work, only looking at each of our writers was told you have to read what these people have written. Whoever you are targeting, you have to read what they've written, hundreds of pages, thousands of pages, all kinds of things, and mark what you think is incorrect or biased, and then you have to reference it very exactly what where they've written, quote it exactly, and then give your uttar, purva paksha, uttar paksha. This is done in that way. Nobody is allowed to take a personal shot. So, for example, you can't say that so and so murdered his wife, something like that. You can't say that. You cannot take something. You cannot take a personal shot. You have to talk only about their work, and this is the kind of intellectual kshatriya we are creating.
I also want to add one small note to that. I think that's an excellent book to give youngsters who read people like Ramachandra Guha and Devdutt Patnaik as and teach them how to give a rejoinder or what is another point of view or the Indic point of view. And our scholars have done a great job in simplifying their language and sticking to the point and giving a rejoinder.
Since you are talking about the youngsters, I would like to take a question from a young member of the audience, Mr. Chinmay Pathak, if he's there. He's talking about the influence of social media on the youngsters. As you rightly said, the youngsters are reading Ramchandra Goa very much. But how the social media is going to going to change their views and how to contain that, how to contain the poison.
So you see, social media is controlled by artificial intelligence algorithms. It is not human beings sitting there. It is algorithms that are rating each person, his profile, and whether he's a good person for society according to them or bad person, how much right he should have, whether to boost his posts or shadow ban him, restrict him, or to completely deplatform him. That entire decision is being made by people sitting far away, not people who have accountability to our country or our citizens. They're sitting far away, have no accountability, and there's no recourse to go there and catch them and say you're biased because that's how it is. So we've allowed, while there are laws against foreign controlled media, but there are none against social media. And this is very strange, very strange. Social media is far worse, far more powerful. So this algorithm now, the question is who trains the algorithm? Who trains the algorithm? Who trains GPT? Who trains all these kind of different algorithms? These algorithms are being trained using data sets that are not very friendly to us. So for instance, if you, in the US, if you put up a post on and say swastika, it will be flagged by YouTube that this is against this is some kind of a violation of rights and all that, because they're assuming that swastika is a Nazi symbol. But swastika, many of you might not know, is not a Nazi symbol. The Nazi symbol, which is that cross, all that funny thing, that strange thing that you've seen, that cross is called Hacken Kraus. Hacken Kraus, which means hooked cross, a cross with a hook. That is the German language name for the Nazi symbol. It is not swastika. Only when they translated the German works, Nazi works into English, the British called it swastika because they wanted to make Indians look like you are Nazis. This is a British mischief. So our swastika has nothing to do with the Nazis. We should resist when people say, oh, you can't use swastika because it is Nazi. But the point is, these algorithms have been trained on that bias, and the algorithms enforce that bias. So social media being driven by algorithms, and these algorithms are driven by training, machine learning training, which is biased. These are inherently biased. So we are getting our kids brainwashed, colonized, short attention span, not able to think for themselves, going for what is everybody's thinking. I'll also think because it is popular. ये लोग सब कह रहे हैं तो मैं भी उसमें चलूँगा, भेड़ चाल, that kind of a thing. This is very dangerous for the future mental health of our population.
Can I say one more thing? I think few years ago, I think Mark Zuckerberg was asked about giving his kids electronics and social media, and you will find that many like Zuckerberg many Silicon Valley tycoons do not give electronics to their children. Yeah, even video games they don't give children. So that's one thing we can all learn from the Silicon Valley tycoons who are heads of these social media companies, because they know how much damage it does to youngsters. The second thing is that I think as adults with children, I think we should stay away from social media as an example. For example, I'm not on social media because it's purely to make a statement to my children that I don't use social media, therefore I have the adhikar to tell you not to use social media.
I would say that India should develop its own platforms rather than geo licensing, Google and Facebook and WhatsApp and making them more popular and giving them more market share and helping them infiltrate deep into the Indian economy and Indian society. These very rich people should have funded their own platform for India and made it more attractive, maybe with Indian languages, maybe with more Indian cultural content. They should have created like China has created its own internet. China has its own equivalent of Amazon, its own equivalent of Google, its own equivalent of Twitter and Facebook. They don't allow these American things because they realize it's a national security threat. China is very clear. They've done this for 10 years. They're not stupid, but we have not done it. And now we are saying it, we can't do it, it's too late, these people are so powerful.
In fact, China's gone ahead and released TikTok to the world. And TikTok in the Chinese version is a very different TikTok. It's about STEM education and learning music, classical music, and things like that. Whereas the American version or the Western version or the version for the world has all these woke ideas and woke videos to ensure that Western youth get totally spoilt. So this is also another strategy of China, which is on the offense.
It's a kind of cyber warfare, psychological warfare through social media. And whoever controls social media can brainwash your people, can create a battle between one Jati and another Jati, one community, another community, swing your votes, swing your preference on what religion you'll follow, things of that kind. And so control of artificial intelligence and control of this new internet media is the future for recolonizing the world, and we are a very vulnerable country.
No, sir, it's about the content, I think, because India has a Indian platform like Coup, which was supposed to replace Twitter. It didn't happen. But let's move to the next question. Someone has asked me, Dr. Sunil Deshpande wants to know about the caste system. He has quoted Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and I quote, "In the absence of caste system, the history and geography of this country would have been different." He wants to know what are your views on that.
Yeah, it is absolutely true. In the absence of caste system, India would have been a better place. But then he also explains that caste was not what Varna and Jati were. He also explains that. So if caste had not happened and we had Varna Jati in the original sense, India would have been socially diverse with many communities competing, but no permanent fixture that he's upper, he's lower. People were were people who are today considered low caste were dynasties. There was a Shudra dynasty. So you see, the there's a book here called Varna Jati Caste that we just came out with. And let me show you this one, Varna Jati Caste, that just came out in the last 3 weeks. That's what this is about, the history of Varna, how in the Vedic era, how it becomes Jati, and then how relatively recently it becomes caste, and why that caste has got problems. It is not an Indian system. It is a system brought by Lord Risley. He did this census in which he made a list of all the Jatis and called them castes and forced them into a hierarchy. And he writes that many of the caste leaders do not think that they're low. They think their caste should be higher. He argues that. He says that people don't want to obey me, we are forcing them.
So one last question because we are running out of time. But I club these two questions, which I think are very important, and the audience should get answer from that. It's about Infinity Foundation. You are providing funds for setting up a study center in name of Mahatma Gandhi. But Mahatma Gandhi was a staunch supporter of.
No, we don't have a
Hindu
chair for Mahatma Gandhi.
You are supporting the funds,
No,
releasing the funds for setting up the study
No.
center in name of.
no, we have no we have no program supporting Mahatma Gandhi.
Fantastic.
You know,
The other question, many members of the audience would like to know.
maybe you're referring to something 15, 18, 20 years ago. There was one George Mason University in USA, and he was starting a journal of non-violence or something like that. One of my friends there, I think his name was Mittal, if I'm not forget. I don't even know if he's there. And for a year, he asked us to help him, and we gave a small donation. We give to hundreds of people. We just gave him that donation. It's not like we are funding any Mahatma Gandhi chair or any of that. I call him Mohandas Gandhi. I don't call him Mahatma Gandhi for a reason.
Okay.
No disrespect. I will tell you, Mohandas Gandhi was a great man in many ways, but he was also misinformed and misguided in many ways.
I think that the last question, many members of the audience are asking what they need to do if they want to work with your foundation.
So ours is not a grassroots, we don't have Shakha, we don't have a grassroots movement. We are a think tank, and we're looking for people with very high quality caliber of writing skills. One is very high caliber writing skills. If you've written something serious, published it, and you want to work with us. But we're also looking for filmmakers. This is something important in Bombay. We are wanting to turn some of these books into movies. I want to make a movie called Harvard Files. Harvard Files. And so I want you guys in Mumbai to help me. We'll give you the knowledge, all information we'll give you. But I want a script writer. Get me a script writer. We'll write a script, put it together, then we'll look for various resources and whatever else is needed to turn it into series. We could make series. So that's one way you could help us. Another way you could help us is help us raise some funding, because we would like to hire more people, more research people, have bigger staff, more books coming out. So we need funding. Then we need people to translate. So we have a team that does Hindi. We would love to have a team for Marathi. But don't just say, I would like to do it. The point is, have you done it before? Do you have experience? Are you willing to do it? Put in the money it takes to spend 1 or 2 years? Because it's not an easy thing to translate a book. A lot of people have the emotion. We are not looking for emotion. Are you competent? And do you have the resources to do the job? That is important. So if people are like that, we would love to talk to them.
Thank you very much, Rajivji, Vijayji. Thanks a lot. Thank you for for enlightening us how to recognize those snakes. And now it's a challenge, of course, to smash them, to contain their poison and the venom. Thank you.
Thank you for a very nice session.
बहुत बढ़िया आपने किया. And we will be sitting and we will be signing books. Anyone who buys those books will sit here and sign the books. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.